Wow. You can call me a football novice. After all, I am just a couch critic. But I am sat here still trying to figure out how Chelsea lost that game. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. SCN! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the
championship! Greetings and welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P. For it is another Chelsea match review, but more specifically, a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against West Ham. But before I get into all that, in the spirit of gift giving, the Christmas season, want to let you guys know that my sponsors, Major League Socks, are offering a promo code. When you enter the code Couch Critic, you will receive a 20% discount on all your purchases on the website. And remember guys, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do to hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, so Chelsea traveled away to West Ham at the London Stadium and came away 3-2 losers. Goal scorers, Thiago Silva with a cushioned header, beautifully done. And then we got Lanzini from the spot. And then we got a beautiful volley from Mason Mount to make it 2-1. Answered by Jared Bowen, and then a late winner from Masuaka. In this match review, we're going to be focusing on Lukaku's reinsertion into the side. We're also going to be talking about Edu Mendy's distribution, but I really do want to start with Chelsea's fixture pileup, the injuries, and the fatigue that we seem to be encountering. Now, normally these are not the topics that I like to cover when I'm talking about Chelsea, when we're talking about fixture lists, because Chelsea, number one, always play a lot of games every year. We're always in and around, the Champions League, in and around, the top of the league and whatnot. So fixture pileup and wanting to win all competitions is something that you just got to get used to at Chelsea. You got to play a lot of games. But it seems like just with the fact that we had the Euros, obviously a condensed schedule last year with the pandemic and whatnot, this has become a real problem, and a lot of injuries are creeping into the side. We're seeing a lot of guys with muscle injuries right now, and that's just basically down to overuse and muscle fatigue. I'm a Chelsea supporter, so I understand that fixture pileup and whatnot is just something you have to deal with, but I'm wondering if these people are taking into consideration the amount of injuries that people are encountering now because of how, teams are demanding you to play and the amount of games that you have to play as well. Not only that, but I also take into account the mental fatigue. I mean, this game against West Ham is a perfect example of just how mental fatigue is plaguing the squad right now. Like, Jorginho is a guy that never makes mistakes and stuff like that. And we're seeing it creep into his game a little bit more now just because he's basically, very emotionally tired. He's drained. He's played in a Euros, won the Euros, came back, missed the penalty, sent his team to, the playoffs now. And there's a lot of mental fatigue that comes with that. We're seeing him not being able to control the ball against United. They get it and score. We're seeing today he's making back passes to Mendy and, not putting the proper weight on the pass and stuff like that. These are all mental mistakes that are creeping into his game. And I think it's just because he's just playing too many. He needs to be taken out of the line of fire for a little bit, recharge his batteries a bit, and then come back in. But because the games are coming so thick and fast, and we don't have a natural replacement for him, he's being asked to play more and more and more and more. He's a guy that obviously is a leader, and when you see your leaders are being knocked off their stoop as often as Jorginho's been the last week and a bit, it scars the whole team, because now when you're looking for leadership on the pitch, you can't necessarily look to Jorginho because he's not emotionally there right now. I know for Chelsea, we're looking at this loss and we're saying, well, we went through this stretch of games and we're just not finding our form right now. And I think a lot of that just comes down to the injuries. We have a lot of injuries right now to key players. And you can't expect the same 9 out of 10 performances that we were getting earlier against the Leicesters, against the Juves and whatnot, when you don't have a full complement of players and the games are coming again and again and again. We're basically using our 16th, 17th, 18th players rather frequently now because our 4th, 5th, and 6th players are not available. There is a reason why you have a preferred roster, and the guys that you have that sit at the end of the bench, the preferred roster are the guys that give you consistent performances, 8 out of 10 performances week after week, and very rarely fall off of that. The guys that sit on the end of the bench can give you those 8 out of 10 performances, but you can't depend on them to give it to you consistently. And that's the problem that we're seeing right now. We're seeing the guys that we would normally have at the end of the bench come in and play a lot of games, and the consistency levels are falling off as a result. And this is the problem right now. The fact that we have so many injuries and we don't have a full complement of players to compensate for the amount of games. I mean, I'm optimistic still because I'm looking at this as an opportunity once we get healthy to start going on a real run, because we've now rotated the squad enough and we're seeing performances from the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, from the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, from the likes of Hakim Ziyech, for instance. You know, all these guys have been rotated into the squad and are giving us good minutes. So when we get back to a full complement, we have more of a roster to choose from now. We can now rest guys that may need a rest here and there and not feel like we're going to have any drop off in performances. But let's face it, that's not the talking point you guys want to hear. You guys want to hear why Chelsea are not, you know, bringing in the likes of Hakimi when, you know, Reece James goes down or Ben Chilwell goes down. And, you know, it's funny because when we're talking about these things, or we're talking about the injuries and whatnot, and, you know, the fact that we foresaw the fact that, like, we should have strengthened the squad a little bit more. And, you know, the likes of Saul Niguez coming in is not offering us anything. You know, these are problems right now. And, you know, it's funny because I thought about this, you know, last week when we saw Reece James come out and then we had Azpilicueta in there, knowing what we demand from our wingbacks right now and how he's not able to provide the same sort of, like, you know, quality Reece James has been providing this year. And, you know, I remember distinctly people saying, why are we going after Hakimi? He's going to be blocking Reece James. You know, we don't need Hakimi right now. We have Azpilicueta, we have Reece James, and, like, anything more than that is just going to take away from Reece James. And, like, we're seeing it now. You know, injuries happen all the time. And when you want a like-for-like substitution, you know, somebody that can come in and give you the same quality, the same sort of, like, maybe not the same quality, but, you know, close to like-for-like substitutions, we're not getting it anymore. You know, Ben Chilwell goes down and we have Alonso coming in. And although he did give us some good minutes at the beginning of the season, the way we use our wingbacks right now, we can't depend on him to give him those types of performances. You know, that position in particular requires so much running up and down the pitch, and offensive awareness, defensive awareness. I would say that particular position is one that requires the most versatility. You have to be able to have excellent box presence. You have to be able to score goals, you know, cross the ball, you know, run up and down the pitch, defend, you know, overlap. All of these things are characteristics of how we use our wingbacks now. And, you know, when you think of what we're asking of Alonso and Azpilicueta right now, it's just, we're not getting that quality. And as a result, we ran, you know, Chilwell into the ground, and Reece James, not even fully fit right now with his ankle still bothering him, is being asked to play game after game after game now because, you know, the drop-off is so stark when we don't have him in the lineup. Did we plan well? Did we plan the squad well enough? And if not, what do we do going forward? I mean, do we look to go into the January transfer window and look to replace our left wing-back position? I'm of the belief that we should. There's names out there. I don't know if they're the most appealing names out there. Tagliafico might be available. I'm thinking that Joachim Mahler would be a good guy to come in, but are these guys even available right now? You know, that's the question. But, you know, I don't think that if we want to be contending for the title, we want to be, you know, right there for the Champions League again, and we have a squad to do that, we can't be overlooking this next window as, like, just, you know, something that we shouldn't be strongly considering re-strengthening again. Okay, so it was a little surprising to see Havertz start the game again because everyone thought that it was going to be Lukaku just based on the fact that, you know, he's been on the bench for the last 3 games and, you know, he's getting, you know, minutes here, minutes there, but it just felt like this West Ham game, the physicality of it and whatnot would have been a game to see Lukaku come in, but we did get Havertz. He was giving us some good minutes and stuff like that, but unfortunately, what should have been a penalty if you ask me, he was brought down by, I think it was Zuma, and I think he went out with either a muscle injury or a back injury. I'm not quite sure which one it was, which meant that Lukaku came into the game at 45, the 46-minute mark, and, you know, played the rest of the game. And the question I'm asking now, and the reason why I want this to be a part of the discussion, is I'm still trying to figure out how we're using this guy. You know, what is it that we're trying to get out of him when he's on the pitch? Now, surely we have to take into account that he's just coming back from an injury and, you know, he hasn't really been able to train because it was his ankle. So his match fitness is not necessarily there. But, you know, I'm still not seeing a game plan for this guy. I'm still not seeing how the manager intends to use this guy in our setup. I mean, we can always see what we have the likes of Werner, you know, Havertz, Mount, you know, Pulisic, Ziyech on the pitch. We know how these guys like to interchange and be a little bit more fluid. But with Lukaku, it seems like he's very much an out-and-out number 9 that likes to stay stationary inside that 9, inside the box, and, you know, come, come collect balls, get on the end of things, which is probably why we bought him. We don't need him. We didn't necessarily think that he's going to be somebody that's going to be involved much in the build-up, but basically the guy that we want to get on the end of things once we've gone through our interplay and created an opportunity to score. In games like yesterday, when you see West Ham is basically camping out, they got Zuma and Dawson just basically looking after Lukaku, and there's absolutely no movement up front. I didn't see anything that resembled any sort of a game plan around Lukaku. We didn't even use him like we used Giroud, a guy that we just play lump balls up to. He knocks him down and we play 1-2s off him and get in behind. But I think this needs to be answered sooner rather than later, because you don't spend £100 million on a guy and then not have a game plan for him, going forward. We can't have him in the squad, playing match after match and not have an actual direction for him on the pitch. And it just looks like we're rudderless right now when we're trying to, integrate him into the squad. What I do need to start seeing is the building blocks for success. I need to see the building blocks for Lukaku to start seeing the semblance of how we're going to be using this guy. We weren't really seeing a game plan that was being devised around using his skill sets, running into the channels. Obviously, he likes to use his pace to get in behind people and whatnot. We're not seeing any game plans to get him out on the flanks where he likes to cut in and, shoot with his left and stuff like that. None of that stuff is existing right now. We're getting into the Christmas period right now. Granted, he's still working himself back into the squad, but we definitely have to start seeing, some sort of like game plan that suits his style of play. And if not, I don't know why we bought him. Now, you should know that I don't really care about individual awards at all. It's not something that I focus on. I'm more about the badge and the achievements that we all collectively win together as a squad. So, club performances and titles are way more important than the individual stuff to me. I don't even focus on that. But if there was one award that I thought should have went to a Chelsea player this past Ballon d'Or selection business there, it should have went to, Edouard Mendy for goaltender of the year. And I don't know how he didn't get it. And I'm sure that whole experience is, weighing on his mind a bit. What more do you have to do to get that award? But, his performances the last little while have left a lot to be desired. And I'm wondering if it's because of the mental fatigue that comes with, these accolades that, you feel like you should be getting and you're not, because we're seeing him do things now on the ball that he doesn't normally do. Like, we see him dwelling on the ball a little bit too long, trying to dribble out of trouble, and when there's opportunities to just clear the ball, get it out, he's holding on to it a bit too long and gets him into trouble. This West Ham game was a perfect example of that. Not just the penalty, but in instances where he's being put under pressure, and instead of just getting rid of the ball, like putting upfield, he's dwelling on it, trying to get, dribble his way out of trouble. And for me, when you're trying to dribble like in the Premier League in particular, if you try to dribble yourself out of trouble, you find yourself in more. And I feel like Edouard Mendy is just starting to, take a little bit too many liberties with the ball at feet right now. And it's costing us, because it's putting a lot of pressure, not only on him, but also on our defenders and our wingbacks, because when he's now, trying to dribble out of trouble and then releasing it, the accuracy of the passes aren't necessarily as sound as they used to be when he was just like, outletting it right away, because he's being hurried now, and the hurried pass is putting pressure on the receiver, who's also being pressed to do something with it. And as a result, we're turning the ball over again. I saw Rudiger turn it over a couple times. Obviously, Alonso's turned it over a couple times. The only guy that hasn't really been put under a lot of pressure, and it's because of his style of play, is Thiago Silva, because even when you put him under pressure, he seems to be able to handle it very well and get out of it. But I don't think that we can assign the same sorts of qualities to everyone, all of our defenders throughout the squad. And this is where you want Edouard Mendy, especially when we have some of the injuries right now, to be more of a calming presence, the way Thiago Silva is, the release of pressure rather than the culmination of pressure. And right now we're not getting that from him, because he seems to be inviting on the pressure and then releasing it to somebody else like a hot potato and putting them under pressure as well. With all the injuries that we have right now and not seeing our preferred 11 out there, we need as much cool heads on the pitch as possible, especially when you're looking to, your goaltender, the last line of defense. You need to have somebody back there that is, not adding to the stress that we are experiencing on the pitch right now with the second string roster. But, I love Edouard Mendy. I think he's a great goaltender. great goalkeeper. He's world class to me, but I feel like right now he needs to start, asserting himself on the pitch in a fashion that relieves pressure rather than piles it on. But I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. Chelsea, unfortunate not to get all 3 points, like no points really. Like, I watched that game and I couldn't see a way that Chelsea could have lost. Like, I thought West Ham were very good at all. They were not very good, but they were very, very, very lucky. And, came to the fore, individual errors on Chelsea's part. And, you get those individual errors when you're fatigued, like mentally fatigued, and we're seeing it all over the pitch right now because the fixture pile up is massive, and we have so many injuries that guys are being asked to play match after match after match after match, and the pressure of being at the top of the table is massive. Like we were the top of the table, and with each piece that's being pulled out of the squad, it makes for a more stressful thing because you don't want to lose your position, but at the same time, you're mentally being drained all the time. So we're seeing the likes of Edouard Mendy, who's usually just a solid world-class keeper, making mental errors. Seeing Jorginho, who is pretty much sure-footed when he's passing the ball, just have mental gaps, like 2 in less than a week. Really, it's uncharacteristic of a guy like Jorginho. And all it just comes down to mental fatigue, injuries, and of course, fixture pile up. But I did receive word, and I should say this now, guys. I don't often watch the women's game, but I want to shout them out because they've done it again. They've ingratiated this club with another title. Chelsea women have won the FA Cup, and I have to shout out Emma Hayes again. She is a mastermind behind the whole thing, and of course, Kerr. Like, where is she? We can use her in the Chelsea's men team right now. She is a fantastic striker. Like, just so calm and composed in the box, with finishes with so much composure and style too. I would love to see her play for the men's team, to be honest, man, the way she finishes. But I digress. We move into another game. We got Zenit in the midweek, Champions League. What do? We have a lot of injuries this spot. Speaking to some friends of mine that were saying that this is not a game that we should be taking any first teamers to. Like, this should be a game that we rotate the squad and bring maybe some youth players to play, because if we suffer any more injuries at this point in time, coupling the ones that we have right now to Havertz, Lukaku's still coming back, Chilwell's out, Kante's out, Kovacic is out. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm probably forgetting somebody too. We can't we won't be able to handle that anymore. I think we're at the threshold where injuries are affecting performances now on the pitch. So maybe this Zenit game, we just have to go with a skeleton squad, hopefully get the 3 points. If not, we've already qualified for the Champions League next group phase anyways. And look to this Leeds game, because this Leeds game, how these guys play. They love to run people off the pitch. It doesn't matter what game they're in. That's their MO. They want to run you off the pitch. And these are when, if you're with the fixture pile up, this is when you start getting like those hamstring injuries that we're talking about earlier. And maybe it's not a game that we could afford to have guys play in the midweek and then on the weekend, just because of the amount of travel coming from Russia. Probably not going to train the next day, probably rest and then go into the weekend for the league. So we got to be careful about that match, and the next 2 matches, how Thomas Tuchel wants to manage the squad. But I'm optimistic still. I think that once we get back to full fitness, as long as we can continue to find ways to keep ourselves in matches, win matches, get Lukaku up and running, find a game plan for this guy, find a use for Sal Niguez, find some form for like Werner. I think that we still have a strong squad and a squad capable of contending for the Champions League and the Premier League. But it all depends on health, and health is dependent on rotation and not overtaxing some of our individuals right now. This is what we're doing, man. This is what Thomas Tuchel's trying to manage. This is the challenge of being a top side. But guys, I don't want to keep you too much longer. Shout out to the women. Keep the blue flag flying high, and up the Chelsea. Peace.